There is a quiet revolution occurring within you, a transformation so subtle, yet so powerful, it shapes your entire reality. When we speak of the brain, we often speak in terms of science, neurons, neurotransmitters, and circuits. But beneath these mechanics, something deeper stirs. Something archetypal. What really happens to your brain is not just a biological process, it is a reflection of your inner world, a mirror of your unconscious becoming conscious. Let me explain through 5 Jungian keynotes, truths that will awaken something long forgotten within you. Your brain is far more than a biological processor, it is the intimate stage where your unconscious self plays out its hidden dramas. Most people believe the brain operates only through logic, memory, and sensory input. But beneath that surface lies something deeper, older, and far more mysterious. Every forgotten memory, every repressed emotion, every unspoken fear is not lost. It is stored, encrypted within the brain's neural pathways. Your brain remembers everything the conscious mind tries to forget. When you feel a sudden wave of emotion you can't explain, when a smell takes you back to a forgotten moment in childhood, or when you have a dream so vivid it unsettles your entire day, that is not coincidence. It is the unconscious surfacing. And it does so through the brain. Jung understood that the unconscious is not some separate entity tucked away in a corner of your mind, it is woven into the very structure of your being. Your brain becomes the interpreter, the communicator, the vessel of what lies beneath. This is why your patterns repeat themselves, even when you try to change. You may say, I won't fall into that trap again, and yet find yourself in the same situation, with the same emotions and responses. Why? Because the unconscious is still active, still influencing your decisions. The brain follows what it knows. It loops the stories you've buried, the truths you haven't dared to face. But this is not a sentence, it's an invitation. When you begin the work of introspection, when you dare to look within, your brain responds. It starts to release what was hidden. You begin to feel what was once numbed. You begin to remember what was once buried. The brain becomes the bridge between who you think you are and who you truly are. Through this connection, the unconscious is no longer something to fear, it becomes a source of wisdom, guidance, and transformation. Your brain doesn't lie. It reflects the truth of your inner world, even when your words and actions contradict it. The tension you feel? The unexplained fatigue? The anxiety that strikes for no reason? These are signals, not of failure, but of fragmentation. Your unconscious is asking to be seen. And your brain is the messenger, trying to bring the forgotten parts of you into the light of awareness. So listen to it. Not just with science, but with soul. Because when you truly understand that your brain reflects your unconscious self, you begin to treat your thoughts, your emotions, and your patterns not as enemies, but as teachers. And only then does healing begin, not just in your brain, but in your entire being. Transformation does not begin in comfort. It begins in rupture, in the cracks that appear when the life you've built no longer fits the truth of who you are becoming. Chaos is not a mistake, nor is it the sign of failure. It is a sacred threshold. When your world feels like it is falling apart, when the ground beneath your feet no longer holds, this is not the end. It is the psyche breaking down old structures to make space for a more authentic self to emerge. In Jungian terms, chaos is the necessary dissolution of the ego's illusion of control. It's the disintegration of the persona, the mask you wear for the world, that you've outgrown but have been too afraid to remove. And so the unconscious begins to stir, not gently, but forcefully. Through crisis, heartbreak, confusion, or exhaustion, it demands to be acknowledged. It shakes the foundations not to destroy you, but to awaken you. This inner chaos is the work of the self, the deeper center of your being, pulling you toward individuation, toward wholeness. You may feel lost, disoriented, even broken. But in truth, you are being reassembled from the inside out. The life that once gave you security now feels suffocating because your soul is expanding. The brain, overwhelmed by this inner conflict, may interpret the experience as anxiety, depression, or numbness. But underneath, something is shifting. Something is reorganizing. Think of nature: the seed must break before it grows, the cocoon must tear before the butterfly emerges, the forest must burn for new life to take root. The same is true of the psyche. When chaos arrives, it strips away the superficial, the inauthentic, and the stagnant. It brings you face to face with what you've ignored, repressed, or denied. It demands a deeper truth. And in that truth, there is liberation. But it is not immediate. You will resist it. You will want to go back to what you knew. The mind will cling to familiar patterns, even if they cause suffering, because chaos feels unsafe. Yet if you can endure, if you can stay present through the storm, you will see that everything falling apart is making room for something greater to come together. This is why Jung warned against escaping the chaos too quickly. Transformation must be lived through. You cannot shortcut it. You must let it teach you, unravel you, humble you. Because only through this process do you shed the false and encounter the real. And the real is always more powerful, more grounded, and more luminous than what came before. So when life erupts and nothing makes sense, do not run. Sit with the discomfort. Honor the chaos. Trust that your psyche knows what it is doing. It is not breaking you down to hurt you. It is breaking you open to rebuild you in truth. What emerges on the other side is not the old version of you, slightly improved. It is someone new. Someone whole. Someone real. And that is the essence of transformation. Neuroplasticity is not just a scientific term, it is the alchemy of the human mind. It is the profound truth that your brain is not fixed, not destined to remain bound by its past. It adapts, it evolves, and it rewires itself based on your thoughts, your choices, your experiences, and even your pain. This means that you are not a prisoner of your history. You are, instead, an artist of your destiny, sculpting the architecture of your mind each day, whether consciously or unconsciously. Jung understood this alchemy long before neuroscience gave it a name. When he spoke of individuation, of integrating the shadow, of becoming whole, he was speaking to this very transformation, the rewiring of consciousness. Every time you confront a fear instead of fleeing from it, your brain forms a new neural pathway. Every time you interrupt a self-destructive pattern, no matter how small, you are changing the very structure of your mind. This is not metaphor. This is biology shaped by intention. The brain cannot distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. When you visualize healing, when you speak life-affirming truths to yourself, when you choose self-discipline over self-indulgence, your brain responds. It begins to reprogram the automatic responses it once relied upon. It begins to dissolve old patterns that no longer serve your growth. This is why change feels so uncomfortable. It is your brain physically letting go of what it has memorized and building something new in its place. But like alchemy, this process is not instantaneous. It requires patience, repetition, and emotional energy. It demands a willingness to stay the course even when results are not immediately visible. You may not feel different on day one. But day by day, something begins to shift. The depression lightens. The anxiety loosens. The intrusive thoughts lose their grip. And in their place, something steadier, more conscious, more alive begins to emerge. It is in this process that we discover a sacred truth: you are not simply a product of your childhood, your trauma, or your past mistakes. Those experiences may have shaped the initial blueprint of your brain, but they do not have to define the final version of you. With awareness and effort, you can choose a different narrative. You can teach your brain how to love instead of fear, how to trust instead of control, how to create instead of react. This is the alchemy Jung pointed toward, the transformation of lead into gold, of suffering into wisdom, of darkness into light. Not by denying the darkness, but by engaging with it, understanding it, and allowing it to become the fuel for your growth. Neuroplasticity gives us the power to turn wounds into wisdom, not just emotionally, but neurologically. So never believe the lie that you cannot change. Never surrender to the illusion that your mind is broken or stuck. Within you is a system designed for transformation, a brain that listens, that learns, and that longs to heal. It is waiting not just for time, but for your conscious engagement. You are not who you were. You are who you choose to become. And with each conscious thought, with each courageous step, you are rewriting the map of your mind. That is true alchemy. That is liberation. Your brain was never designed to make you perfect, it was designed to make you whole. And yet, from the earliest moments of life, you are taught to strive for perfection. Be good. Be smart. Be strong. Don't fail. Don't cry. Don't make mistakes. Slowly, this pursuit of an ideal self becomes a mask, and the parts of you that don't fit into that mask, your anger, your sadness, your fear, your dreams, are pushed down, repressed, or denied. But the brain does not forget. What you exile does not disappear, it waits. Your mind, in its deepest wisdom, does not want the flawless version of you. It does not want the edited self you show the world. It wants all of you, especially the parts you hide. Because those parts contain truth. And the brain, like the soul, seeks truth over performance. It seeks integration over image. This is why perfection breeds suffering. Because every time you deny a part of yourself to appear acceptable or successful, you create internal conflict. The brain senses the split. And that split becomes stress, anxiety, burnout, even illness. In Jungian psychology, this internal conflict is the result of a divided psyche, where the ego, trying to maintain its illusion of control and order, suppresses the unconscious. But the unconscious cannot remain silent. It speaks through dreams, through neuroses, through the patterns in your relationships, through the restlessness you feel when you are living someone else's life. Your brain is constantly signaling to you that wholeness has been lost, not because you are broken, but because you are incomplete. Healing begins not when you become better, but when you become honest. When you stop striving to be what you think you should be, and begin embracing who you actually are. This means owning your flaws, not as failures, but as fragments of your humanity. It means recognizing that your sensitivity is not weakness, that your wounds are not shameful, and that your darkness does not disqualify you from light. The brain is plastic, adaptive, and profoundly intelligent. It responds to authenticity. When you allow yourself to feel what you feel, to think what you truly think, and to live in alignment with your inner truth, the brain recalibrates. It quiets the survival mechanisms built on shame, guilt, and fear. It begins to operate from a place of safety and balance, because you are no longer at war with yourself. Wholeness is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of integration. It is when you can look at every part of your story, the good, the bad, the misunderstood, and say, this too is me. And when you do that, the energy you once spent hiding, pretending, and performing is freed. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions more manageable. Your relationships more genuine. This is not perfection. This is inner peace. The journey toward wholeness is messy, non-linear, and profoundly human. You will fall. You will forget. But each time you choose truth over perfection, you return to yourself. And that is the most powerful transformation of all. Because in the end, your brain, and your soul, longs for one thing, not a flawless life, but a whole one. One where nothing is denied, nothing is wasted, and everything belongs. Every thought you think is more than just a flicker in your mind, it is a seed. A beginning. A quiet origin of something that, if repeated and fed, grows into belief, behavior, and ultimately, reality. Most people dismiss their thoughts as fleeting, random, and insignificant. But the psyche does not. The unconscious listens closely. It records, stores, and shapes itself around these thoughts. In time, what begins as a simple mental whisper becomes the structure of your life. Carl Jung understood this with piercing clarity. He said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." But even deeper than that, you are what you think over and over again. Every thought is energy. Every thought carries emotional weight. And every time you repeat a certain pattern of thinking, whether it's, "I'm not enough, life is against me," or "I can't change," that thought starts to sink into your unconscious. It becomes an operating principle, an inner script that runs silently but relentlessly. Your brain does not argue with you. It accepts the messages you give it. If you feed it fear, it will become hypervigilant. If you feed it hopelessness, it will suppress your motivation. If you feed it shame, it will wire itself to avoid joy, intimacy, or vulnerability. But if you choose, consciously and with intention, to plant different seeds, the landscape of your mind begins to shift. This is not naive optimism. This is inner work. To change your thoughts is to challenge your inner architecture. It is to face the inner critic, the wounded child, the skeptical adult within you, and say, "No more. I choose differently." And each time you replace a self-sabotaging thought with one rooted in truth, compassion, and possibility, you rewire your brain. You redirect your destiny. The unconscious is fertile soil. It does not discern good from bad. It simply allows what is planted and repeated to grow. This is why ancient wisdom and modern science both emphasize awareness. Because without it, we live as slaves to our unconscious programming. We react instead of respond. We survive instead of thrive. We remain trapped in cycles we don't even know we're repeating. But awareness is the turning point. When you observe your thoughts without judgment, you gain the power to choose. You begin to notice how often your mind replays fear, jealousy, regret, or resentment. And in that noticing, you can pause. You can plant something new. A thought of hope. A thought of strength. A thought of forgiveness. Not because the world is perfect, but because you deserve the peace that comes from choosing consciously. One thought will not change your life. But one thought, repeated daily, will. The same way water, drop by drop, shapes stone, so too do your thoughts shape your mind, your mood, your direction. Your destiny is not something that happens to you. It is something that unfolds through you, beginning with the seeds you sow in the quiet moments of your mind. So ask yourself, what kind of life are you planting with your thoughts? What future are you unconsciously rehearsing each time you believe you're not capable, not worthy, not meant for joy? You are not your past thoughts. You are the gardener of your mind today. And with awareness, patience, and courage, you can grow a future that aligns with your true self. Every thought is a seed of destiny. Choose wisely. Plant with intention. And never underestimate the power of a single conscious thought. It may be the very seed that transforms your entire life. So, what really happens to your brain? It listens. It adapts. It mirrors. And above all, it remembers. It remembers the truth you forgot in the noise of the world. That you are not broken. You are becoming. The journey is not about fixing your brain, it's about understanding its message. It's not malfunctioning, it's awakening. In this journey toward wholeness, your brain is not the obstacle. It is the compass. Follow it. Into the depths of the unconscious. Through the fire of transformation. Toward the self. And there, you will find not only your mind, but your soul.